Hello, Chris here. This week, Tom Francis has recorded a one-off solo pod on the game that he's been playing loads of, Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a PlayStation 4 exclusive open-world adventure thingy. Now, we thought we might splice this into the middle of this week's episode, but instead of that, we figured, given it's a console game and being beamed in from overseas, we figured it might better stand alone as a lock-in, similar to what we once did with Dishonored 2. The only reason I'm recording this is because Tom didn't say a sufficiently elaborate hello at the beginning of his little mini podcast, and I didn't want you to be frightened when this began and you didn't know what was going on. He was just talking to you about robots. This has already gone on far too long, but before I go, I just wanted to wrap up by saying that this week, if you are in London on March the 31st, you can join us for our first ever live show at Rezzed, which is in Tobacco Docks. You can find out more information on the Rezzed website. We're really excited to be actually doing Crowbar live for the first time. Graham's going to be there. I'll be there. Pip will be there. Should be great. Hope to see you there. But now, enjoy Tom Francis's hot takes on hot robot dinosaurs.
So I'm in Seattle, and I'm recovering from a cold. Apologies if you can tell. And I'm going to be back in England fairly soon, at which point I'll be back in the podcast. But when I do get back, the thing that I've actually been playing most in the time since I was last on is not a PC game. So I might talk about it now, and maybe this will become a kind of non-episode. That's Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's the one with the robot dinosaurs. Although, actually, it turns out they're not, like, there's a robot T-Rex, and then the rest are not really closely dinosaur-based. There's a couple you could say maybe are like raptors, but then most of them are based on like chickens, crocodiles, horses. They're basically just animals. There just happen to be a couple of dinosaurs in there. I just recently got to the part where they explain why these things are around. Like, I'm playing this game, it's an open world game, and it's beautiful, and there's loads to do just in the open world, and so I just did loads in the open world, and I ignored the quests. And I love it. I love the kind of visual of just robot animals walking around this completely natural and otherwise totally Earth-like landscape. And the sort of nameless mystery of it is just like, why? Why are they there? Who built them? What are they? And why, like, specifically, why would they make robots that look just like animals? Why do they specifically make robot equivalents of animals? And as I was playing, I was appreciating this and enjoying this, but also thinking in the back of my head, like, please don't explain it. Please don't try to tell me why. Like, I like wondering why, but don't actually tell me, because it's never going to be good. I've got to the point where they do explain that now, and I won't spoil it, but in terms of like how satisfactory it wasn't as completely dumb as I thought it was going to be. It still does not come anywhere close to explaining why there would be such exact equivalents of normal animals, but it does... I don't know, it was just the thing that made me give it a bit of a pass in the end is just that the plot itself is just entertaining. It's just like, it's interesting to uncover. I play this game in a very strange order in that first of all, I have to forewarn you if you're going to play it that the first like 2 hours is just this long, quite linear, story-driven bit where you're not allowed out into the open world, and I found it very dull. It has like really high production values. Everything's really well produced and kind of very cinematically presented. The voice acting is good. The story, I don't know, like the themes and stuff I like, but it's incredibly long-winded. Just every conversation goes on 10 times longer than I need it to. Like, I do that thing where I'll sort of indulge it for a little while and I'll let the conversation play and I'll be listening and waiting for it to get it kind of interesting. And just at my like absolute threshold of, okay, I think I've had enough of this, I'm just going to skip it, the rest of it. That's when I start skipping. And then as I'm skipping, I realize I was 10% of the way through this conversation. This was just going to go on and on and on. And I wish I could say I'd like, you know, I'm skipping because I've got the idea and I don't need to hear the rest. But actually, at the end of it, I realized I didn't get anything from that conversation. And then, like, I just did a quest line that turned out to be about, I think, I accidentally sort of exfiltrated a king from a city. I thought I was just doing, like, a bounty hunting quest. And at the end of it, it was like, oh, now we got the king out. Hooray! Like, what? Oh, okay. I have no one to blame myself for that because I skipped the dialogue. But, yeah, it's not like that thing where they get to the point quickly and then elaborate afterwards. It's the point is somewhere buried in that 3 hours of dialogue. I'm exaggerating. So So, because of that linear opening, I think the opening is really bad, actually, given how good the rest of the game is. Because the rest of the game is it's one of my favourite open world games in years. It's incredibly generous in the way it lets you play and how it supports everything you want to, all the different styles you might want to try and all the different activities you might want to do, except for the intro, which is incredibly restrictive. And well, not incredibly restrictive, but it's just forces you to do the least interesting things, and you kind of can't escape the plot. You just have to do the plot stuff, and the plot stuff is really long-winded, as I say. Then you're out in the open world, and the open world is the thing it does better than most open worlds is that it's just incredibly rich with stuff to do. No, that sounds really vague. That just sounds like the compliment that every open world game wants to say about their own thing. The reason it is true in Horizon is because of the robot animals, and the robot animals are they're designed like bosses, and I hate boss fights, but they're not really bosses. Well, they kind of the thing they don't have in common with bosses is that they're not about sinking masses of damage into this thing mindlessly, and they're also not special cases. They're not bullshit. I hate bosses because you learn to play the game and you get good at the systems and you learn to use the tools, and then the boss is just an exception to those. Oh no, you can't do a stealth kill. No, you can't do you can't use a disable on this guy. And also he's got 10 times the health, and bosses do have glowing weak spots, and that's what makes me call Horizon's animals bosses, because they all have glowing weak spots. But those glowing weak spots, rather than being things that you have to pump damage into again and again, if you hit them at all, basically you will destroy it and destroy the weak spot and cause the effect. And that's where it gets interesting, because it's not about hitting the weak spot for massive damage, although it does do massive damage. The weak spots themselves have special properties. So one of the most basic creatures is just like a mechanical horse called a strider, and on its back it has a blaze canister, and a blaze canister is like a fuel cell, basically. And the animal itself, I don't think ever uses it as a weapon or anything. It's just it's there to power it, I guess. And if you shoot that blaze canister with a normal arrow, you'll do extra damage. It's a weak spot, and with a couple of shots, you'll destroy the blaze canister, and that'll take out most of the creature's health. But if you shoot it with a flame arrow, because it's fuel, it will catch fire, and then a few seconds later, it will explode with tremendous force, nearly destroying the horse itself. But also, if there's any other enemies nearby, they all get caught in the blast. And so it's this great tiered level of success. You could just shoot the fucking horse, as you always can in video games, and it'll do minimal damage. You can shoot the weak spot for more damage, or you can shoot the weak spot with the right type of ammo, and then when the enemy is in the right place, and you'll not only do a load of damage to that enemy, but you also do loads of damage to the surrounding enemies. And that's just one element. So there are also power cells, which are shock element. And so if you shoot those with a shock arrow, after a second they'll frazzle, and then they'll blow up with the shock blast wave, which disables everything in that area. And then there are also freeze canisters. If you shoot those with a freeze arrow, they freeze everything. Fire does damage and then also does damage over time. Shock disables things for sort of 5 seconds-ish, if things get shocked enough. Frost doesn't disable things. It kind of stuns them for a second, but the main effect is that while the freezing effect lasts, they take extra damage. It feels like about 50% extra damage from everything. So everything you hit them with, it might even be double damage, actually. Because that's one of those things where they tell it to you and you think, oh, okay, I don't think I really care. And then you try it and you're like, holy shit. It just wiped out that entire horde. What's the collective noun for horses? I wanted to say horde of horses. Now I keep wanting to say flock. What is it? I don't know. A group of horses. Stampede. A fleet of horses. An armada of horses. That's what it is. So, okay, that leads me directly onto another thing I really like about the open world and the structure of this game as an open world game in general, which is the Hunter's Trials. And I'm the last person to give a shit about the challenge type things in an open world. Open worlds always have the main quest, side quests, random killing of things that you encounter just as you wander around, stupid out of context challenges, and collectibles and a couple of other standard tropes. And usually the challenges and collectibles are the things I care least about. And the challenges will just be like, they'll just make no sense in the world. They'll just be like, in this location, try and kill 20 guards with a flamethrower, which we've given you infinite ammo for. And who cares? The challenges in Horizon are hunting grounds, and they are an area of the open world that is that just has an interesting mix of creatures. It's not like cordoned off or anything. It's just a certain area of the open world. You can walk into it and fight those creatures anytime. But nearby there'll be a campfire and a hunter guy, and you'll talk to him and he'll tell you what the 3 trials are. And they will be stuff like stun bellowbacks, and while they're stunned, shoot their exposed canisters. I can't remember what kind of canisters they are, but they're probably blaze canisters if it's a fire bellowback, and they're probably frost canisters if it's a freeze bellowback. Bellowback is a huge kind of, not actually sure what animal these are based on, a thing with a giant sack of fuel on its back, and they're very powerful. And so one cool thing about these trials is that they're not bullshit. They don't set up some special circumstance. I think the area that they happen in, the hunting ground, I think probably when you accept the trial, it resets it to some kind of default state so that, it ensures that you haven't, if you'd just been through there yourself and you'd killed all the creatures and then you accepted the trial would be impossible because the creatures are already dead. So I think it resets it to some kind of default state. That's not really so much of a special case, because if you kill a bunch of creatures in like, those striders, if you find like a flock of striders, is it a flock? I don't know. If you find a flock of striders or an armada of striders and then you kill them all and you go away for a while and come back, they will just respawn in that area and there'll be about the same number of them, and it's not, it's a little bit artificial, but it's fine. For some reason that feels a lot better with like animals than it does with, say, Far Cry 2's outposts, where the outposts repopulate. That felt kind of frustrating, that just everywhere you go, if you've been away for 5 minutes, everyone's just back and everything's replenished. With animals, it kind of feels possible that, by natural osmosis, some more horses have wandered into this place. And so the fact that hunting grounds reset themselves does not bother me at all and doesn't seem fake or anything. And so the trials will just be a series of things that they know this is a good area to try them in. And they're often kind of fun. And then the most important and the best thing about them is that they actually teach you something about how to play the game. So that one about stunning bellowbacks to shoot their canisters, the thing I couldn't get my head around when I first played Horizon was like the enemies have these glowing weak spots, but they're moving so fast that I can't really hit them reliably, and I don't really know what hitting them does. I hadn't read all the blurb about this elemental stuff before. And so it seemed like, is it even worth trying to hit them? Like when I do hit them, I know now that it shows a big number with a green arrow. That means you did extra damage. I didn't understand that at the time. So I would sometimes hit the weak spot. I wouldn't really know. Have I done like loads of damage for doing that? Why did I bother doing that? And also it's so hard to do it that it doesn't feel viable to do it. And then this trial says shock some bellowbacks, then shoot the canisters on them. And canisters on a bellowback are like right on the undercarriage, and it's this thing that walks very close to the ground. It's incredibly hard to hit those while it's moving around. And also it's like firing a flamethrower in your face at the time. But when you stun them, they just kind of like kneel and they just stay in the exact same pose for like 5 or 10 seconds. And so you have all the time that you need to line up a shot on their undercarriage and hit these things. That actually taught me, A, that's a good tactic, but also B, one of the reasons I've been struggling with a lot of this stuff is that my arrows just don't do that much damage even when you hit the weak spot. Like even when they are stunned and I'm hitting the exact thing, it still was taking me like 2 arrows to take out one of those canisters, and it has like 6 of them. And later on you get better weapons that are more powerful in general, but then you also get weapons that are designed to rip parts off a machine, and that's kind of where it starts to click. Like that enables you to interact better with these systems. And yeah, there were a bunch of these trials, and in each trial you can get a 1 of 3 rankings, basically silver, bronze, silver, and gold. But not called that. And some of them are a little bit tricksy or special casey. Special case is a good friend of mine. some of them are just a little bit bullshit, and so I didn't love all of them. But loads of them teach you really interesting things. One of them that was just tie down glint hawks, and I've been fighting glint hawks forever, and I hated them. They're flying enemies, so no surprise that they're incredibly annoying, and the game would be better without them. That's just universally true as far as I can tell. But I knew you could tie them down in theory. There's a thing called a rope caster, and if you fire enough ropes at something, it sort of kind of traps it in place. I've never found it that useful, because if you then attack the thing, the ropes break. So it's only really useful if you have multiple enemies and you want to take one of them out of the action for a while. And so I knew that, but I'd never really done it. And then there's a challenge where you specifically just have to tie down some glint hawks, and I did it. Got close enough to them when they were low enough that I could tie them down, and then I didn't kill them while they were tied down, and I went around and tied the other ones down. And I just found that if you don't actually attack the things you tie down, they just stay tied for I looked it up and it's 90 seconds, like a minute and a half. And they seemingly can't attack or move. They're just completely out of the game for 90 seconds, which is incredible, because you can just handle anything that way. If there's 5 glint hawks now, you can just tie down 4 of them and then take out the last one, or even tie down 5 of them. And by the time you've done it, the first one still won't be free, and you can just, at your leisure, you can't do all of your damage to them, because after a little bit of damage, like I say, they break free, but you can just plan out your attack. That's another thing I love about Horizon, is that there's a huge amount of, if you have time to prep and your target is going to be staying still, you can magnify the amount of damage you're going to do tremendously, or that's even simplifying it. You can set up a massively more effective attack, like hitting those electric canisters in such a way that they'll shock everything else, or hitting... Glint hawks actually have a frost canister on their chest that has armor on it, and so if you can take out that armor and then hit the frost canister, it will blow up and it will freeze the glint hawk and it will freeze anything else nearby, and then they take extra damage. So if you can do that, and then also, either slightly before you do that or right after you do that, hit them with a sticky mine, so it's stuck to them. That's on a time delay as well. So you could hit them with a sticky mine, burst their chest freeze canister so that they get frozen and take extra damage, and then the sticky mine goes off and deals the extra damage because now they're frozen. And stuff like that is really satisfying. So the fact that there are, let me look it up. I have it on screen now. I'm trying to say how many creatures there are. There are 6, 12. I think there are 26 different kinds of animals. I just call them creatures and animals, where they're neither. They're machines. There are actual, funny enough, animals in this game. There are just boars and chickens and stuff. Those are not a threat. You can just kill them for resources. But each one of those has its own, design that involves weak spots, and I'll just call them components, actually, because that's what they are. And weak spots doesn't fully do it justice, because, like I say, they have these elemental effects. They have these special tricks you can do with them. And then all of their attacks will also be in some way manifested on their body. If they can hit you with their tail is a component, and you can shoot that off, and then they can't hit you with their tail. And if they have an elemental attack, you can then shooting the canister that corresponds to that will stop them from using that elemental attack. Some of them have guns mounted on them, and you can shoot those guns off. If you shoot the gun off before you kill it, you can also pick up that gun. And a thing I've just started doing now, this leads me into the other thing I want to say about it, is I'm doing a really weird thing, actually. I just finished the game. I just finished the main quest, and the last boss fight is terrible. I hate it passionately. It's even worse than the normal last boss fights, and I hate all last boss fights. But I got through it. I had to put the game down on easy, and I ran out of ammo. I'm doing this at a ridiculously high level because I've done everything else in the game, basically. And it was still absurdly, ridiculously hard. And in a boring, annoying way. But for some reason, after I finished it, it then puts you back in the world and says, oh, you can still do really side quests and stuff. And I thought, no, I'm going to load the save from before I finish the game, and then do all the side quests then, and then maybe finish the game again. Because in retrospect, all the different sequences in the final mission, in retrospect, I realised, oh shit, if I'd been wearing this outfit for that one, that would have gone way better. And I realised loads of better ways to do it. And also I ran out of a certain kind of resource. And so I've loaded an old save, and now before I do the end of the game again, I'm going to tie up all loose ends, and I am going to make sure I have enough of the thing I ran out of, which is blaze, which is the fuel resource, the fire one. And I wasn't expected to run out of that because I've had way too much of it for most of the game, but the end sequence I ended up using a whole load of explosive and fire-based things. A lot of the enemies you're fighting are weak to fire, and I ran out of blaze and I couldn't do it. And that was one of the things that pissed me off so much. It was like, this boss just was so fucking difficult. This did not, by the way, it didn't obey the component system 100%. It had elements of that component system, but it wasn't satisfying in all the ways the other fighting the other kinds of creatures are. I wasn't able to shoot any components off it ever, no matter how many arrows I pumped into it, even the special ones that are designed to rip components off. And eventually, I just ran out of all of my good kinds of ammo, and that was how long this fucking fight had gone on. And that pissed me off, but also if I'm going to do it again, I don't think I should do it again. I don't know why I'm planning to do it again. I'm very ill, that's what's going on. If I am, then I want to make sure I have enough blaze next time. And so now I'm going around the world and trying to get more blaze. And you find it all over the place, like loads of different creatures have it. Those strider things, if I find an armada of striders, as I often do, I'm incredibly stealthy now, and I can sneak up to each individual one and backstab it, and one hit for free, doesn't cost me any resources to do it. And the others won't see, and I can just kill each of them methodically like that, and they all have one blaze on them, and that's a decent, that's what I've been doing most of the game, and I've had more blaze than I need. But now that I need to stockpile it, I'm suddenly looking at these systems more closely, and for a while I've had these things called harvester arrows that never sounded that appealing to me, because, like I say, I wasn't short on these canister resources, really. But a harvester arrow, all it does, it's not really more effective than the other arrows, but if you shoot a canister with it, it takes it off cleanly, and then when you pick it up, now that I come to use it, it just said you get more resources, and I thought, okay, like 2 instead of 1, I don't know. Now that I come to use it, I find you get like 8 or 6, which is way more than you get from just killing the thing normally. And so now I'm on this kind of self-directed quest to just kind of prowl the lands, looking for things that have blaze canisters on them, and then quietly and cleanly shooting them off, hiding as these things, obviously panic and look for me, and then sneaking around them after they know where the arrow came from, so they'll come in your direction, and you have to kind of like roll and sneak through the bushes to circle round them and go to where you shot them and pick up the canister whilst they are looking for you where you used to be. And that's an incredibly satisfying and methodical thing. And also it just feels really good to take part off a machine cleanly and silently, and have it not turn into a fight, just for you to be able to sneak around. I was doing it to the striders earlier, and actually I did get rumbled, and I managed to lose them again, but then I couldn't get to the blaze canisters I'd knocked off easily, so I ended up sneaking up on them, killing them anyway, which felt weird because it was shooting the canister off is in theory a way to get your resources without having to kill the thing. But I ended up killing them anyway, just because it's more convenient. And yeah, you still make a much bigger blaze profit that way, seemingly. So that's the thing that's kind of the sort of things I just did for the first, 20, 30 hours of playing this game. Once I didn't have to do any quests, I stopped doing quests and I just went out into the world. And it does a good job of giving you natural reasons to want certain things from certain creatures. For a lot of it, you're just, when you're new in this world, you're just trying to get good loot, just trying to get cool stuff. And you'll get that from higher level creatures. The fact that they're a bit like bosses means that they work as boss fights. They are good boss fights, and they share the things with a boss fight that people who like boss fights want, which is they're climactic and exciting, and a change of pace. But they also work for me because they're systemic and they obey the rules I already know, and I can use my tools and tactics that I understand on them, and they'll behave consistently. And the neat thing about that is that in the early game, you fight something called a sawtooth, and that's kind of like the first boss, really, and you have to set up traps ahead of time and really plan your approach and try and lure him into your tripwires, and then once he's shocked, run in and get some critical hits in and try and, really set up this orchestrated ambush to try and take one of those guys down. And at this point, those things are just plankton to me. Like, I can just take them on without a thought. I can take on multiple saw teeth, I think the plural is, an armada of saw teeth. And that's not really because I'm much tougher or do much more damage now. I do a bit more damage. But the ramp up in your sort of raw power is, I think you make a big jump in that in getting the basic set of weapons. And then once you've got the basic set of weapons, the better weapons don't actually do more damage. They just have, they allow you to fire a wider range of different ammo types, some of which are more effective. So like the precision bow lets you fire an arrow that does a bit more damage, but then more importantly, it lets you also fire tear blast arrows, which are the ones that are especially good at ripping off components. And once you craft some of those, now you've got a thing that's really good at this one particular job of just taking something off a creature. And so there are times when you want to do damage to kill it, and there are times when you want to disable a certain part of it, and there are times when you want to rip off a piece of armor so that you can get at a weak spot, and that kind of stuff. So you get way more effective once you have those basic tools. But the reason I can take out a sawtooth so much better now is just that I understand the game much better, and that I have all those tools, have all those options, and have all these different ways of delivering the damage that I want to deliver, and I know what the optimal combination is. And I really enjoy that as a progression thing. Like, that is, as I walk around the open world now, I feel like the whole game is kind of about you being a hunter, and it's really very, it's a lot like Far Cry Primal or a game like that that's all about nature. Like, it's really just almost 100% about nature. The fact that they're robots is incidental. It just makes, it's not incidental to the combat, but it's incidental to like the feel of it. That just gives them a way of making a much more interesting combat system where they have glowing weak spots and exploding barrels on them. And so, yeah, going around this world feeling completely comfortable with it, because I know I can take on anything in it now. Like, I've gone through that progression of Sawtooth seemed like a boss, and now it seems like a normal enemy. And then the next thing up is like a Ravager. That seems like a boss. And then now I can take on Ravagers easily. And then the next one up is like a Snapmaw. Snapmaw's like a giant crocodile thing, and those seem terrifying at first. That was like, first time I blundered into one of those was just horrifying. And I was destroyed. And now Snapmaws just don't scare me at all. And I know exactly how to deal with them. And that just keeps happening. Like, there are 26 enemies, and probably every 3 or 4 enemies there's this jump up in power that makes that one seem like a boss. And then you get good at it, and then those are just things that you can deal with. And you'll take on flocks of them, armadas of them, fleets of them. That's a really nice progression. I'm also, the thing that helps a lot is I've got a higher stealth rating now. Like, I've got my outfit gives me a bigger stealth bonus, and that is very helpful for letting you pick your battles. You know, it's like, it's one thing to be able to take on a sawtooth, but the fact that you don't have to take on a sawtooth every single time one is even on the horizon, that's a big plus. I swear, like, it's really interesting because I remember a sawtooth being a really huge thing, and they are bigger in my memory than they are in practice now. When I look at one now, they seem so small. Like, I can hardly tell the difference between the size of that and the size of a scrapper, which is like one of the most basic enemies. And that's a really neat. I think that tells you the game is working. That when you have sort of psychological distortion of memory about this thing that is consistent, as far as I know. A sawtooth is a fixed enemy. It's always the same power. It's always just as tough. It's always just as powerful. And they're less threatening to me now for all kinds of reasons. And so they just seem smaller. So it has that great progression. And it also, another thing it shares with Far Cry Primal in particular is it's not really a crafting system so much, but to buy certain things, you need, the vendors want to trade with you for a bunch of money, but also a particular item. And so if you want that sharp shot bow that lets you fire tear blast arrows, I can't remember what it is, but let's say it's a scrapper heart that you need. And a heart is basically the CPU of the creature. And you only get them every so often when you kill one, which is an aspect of the game I don't like that much, actually, that the loot drops are random and sometimes you need a particular thing and you don't get it. But if you want this bow because you want to be able to knock things off creatures better, then you need a scrapper heart, and so you need to go and find some scrappers, and you need to kill some scrappers and then loot them. And that is a sort of self-directed quest. Like, I'm hesitant to call it crafting because I don't think of myself as someone who likes crafting games. I don't really like big recipes and I've got to get 5 of this and 10 of this and 1 of this. This is not like that at all, really. It has some element of that for other things, for making potions and stuff, but that's not super important. The main thing is just like you need a new weapon or you need a new outfit, and those things generally only require 1 item. It's a bunch of money and 1 item, and that 1 item is something that is dropped by a certain kind of creature, and so you go out and you find that certain kind of creature. And there are other kinds of loot too that are valuable, but the fact that the game has just given me a really good long set of goals that were really felt like they were my goals, felt like things that I had decided to go out and do for myself. And the way I went about them was not to look it up in a book or anything, or go where, an NPC told me to. It was using my own knowledge of the world or exploring the world until I knew enough about it to know where to go that I would find a scrapper, that I would find a long leg, and then killing them and getting those things. And then there's also another aspect to that is that you can override some creatures. You can plug your spear into them and hack them, and that's kind of a stealth attack. Like, you need to get close to them without them knowing you're there, or you can stun them and then run up to them when they're incapacitated. And if, for those kinds of creatures, if you get close enough and you do that and you hold down the button long enough, then they turn to your side and they fight for you, and you can upgrade that skill so that they fight for you forever, like it never wears off. They will despawn if you go far enough away from them in the world, but for the foreseeable future, they're on your side. And which kinds you can override is determined by, you start with a couple basic ones, but then as you go out into the world, there's these cauldrons, which are like factories underground. And if you go into a cauldron and you get to the end of it, you unlock the ability to hack another 3 or 4 types of creatures. And there are actually only, I think, 2, maybe 3 kinds of creatures in the whole game that you can't hack. Everything else you can hack, and what you can hack is by no means limited by its power. Like, the 2 or 3 that you can't hack, one of them is a non-combat creature that can never attack anything. 2 of them are just creatures that only come up in the plot. You only ever encounter them when you're on a story mission, and I guess there are story reasons they don't want you to be able to hack them. It also makes a certain amount of sense that you can't hack those ones. But the fucking T-Rex that you've seen, if you've seen any trailers of this, the like fucking enormous thing that's one of the most powerful enemies of the game, you can hack that. You can hack the giant flying dragon type thing. Just everything else. The other 23 creatures, you can hack them if you've gone to the right cauldron and you've got the right things. Unfortunately, the cauldron missions themselves are kind of garbage. This game is much, much better at outside stuff than it is at inside stuff, and so the inside bits, they're just very dark, and it's very hard to see where you can and can't go, and it's very easy to get stuck in a way that you're now out of bounds and you can't get back into the level. It's very easy to not know which direction to go, and then in exploring and trying to find which direction to go, drop down a ledge that looks safe, but actually it's fatal because you weren't supposed to go there, and stuff like that. So those I did not enjoy, but they're not too difficult, and the first one was difficult, and I kept failing it. I'd fail it for bullshit reasons, like I fell down a ledge that looked perfectly safe but secretly wasn't. And then when I restart, I'd die in the combat part and then get really pissed off. And so I put the difficulty down to easy for a while and did that one that way. Since then, I haven't had so much trouble with them because I just know the game much better, and so any combat stuff is going to be manageable. And then any navigation stuff, I've learnt that you just turn the quest arrow on and you set it to waypoints, and then it will tell you pretty precisely where to go. And I still dislike them. One of them, literally, you just start in a fucking circular arena with a goddamn T-Rex, and that's it. There's nowhere to hide. There's no cover. You just have no tactical options. You just have to just just deal with it. And it's a question of constantly dodging and, if you use the right weapons in the right order, then it does enough damage that you can take it out. But also I had to go away and upgrade my medicine pouch and shit to increase my survivability. And that again, so that was bullshit. Like fighting a T-Rex in a blank arena with no interesting features was a garbage boss fight. But because I failed it and because I knew I couldn't do it, it motivated me to go out into the world and so I finally unlocked the skill that doubles the capacity of a medicine pouch, which is a thing I wasn't interested in. In a skill tree, I always go for the stuff that suits my kind of playstyle, and toughness is not one of my things I care about. But here was a case where I'm just like, well, I can't get past this unless I can really take a lot of damage. So I just kind of need this skill. And so I had to go out and get some skill points. And then once I got the skill points, spent them on that thing. And then once I had the increased medicine pouch capacity, I then had to go around and find enough medicine plants to fill that capacity, in order to have enough, stuff that was actually an advantage. And that was another little self-directed goal, and it ended up being the process of working towards those goals was really fun, and I was able to do it in whatever way I wanted. And then I went back and I fought the bullshit T-Rex, and it was pretty easy that time, and I got the ability to hack T-Rexes, and now I can hack T-Rexes, and that is a source of joy in my life. I actually did some grinding for once. This game has brought out in me a whole load of gamer tendencies that I usually do not have. One is I never normally grind for anything. If a game requires that, I just don't play the game. But in this case, I wanted... so my self-directed goal was... I had finally got to the point where I could afford the top-level stealth outfit. There are different levels of outfits, and the outfits are basically, they resist one of the elements, or they resist range attacks, or they resist melee attacks, or they increase your stealth. And the stealth one gives no extra protection, but it helps with stealth. I love stealth. I will go for the stealth thing if I humanly can. And I had the lowest level of that stealth outfit, and I put some stealth mods in it. I actually had 2 stealth mods. I'd fitted one in my starting outfit to increase its stealth, because it was a stealth outfit. Then later, I decided I didn't like the look of that. It had a lot of, I didn't like the colours so much. And there's a really cool looking outfit, that resists against shock, which I don't care about at all. But it looks like a kind of welder's apron, and just looks really cool on her. It looks like incredibly practical and no nonsense, and I just really like the look of it. And I thought, generally in games, I will go for the outfit that looks better versus the one that has better stats. And so even though this is like real core gamer values fighting within me, because incredibly focused on stealth and always want the stealth thing and I'll be as stealthy as humanly possible. But also I really believe in don't have a horrible, ugly outfit just because the stats are better. The stats being better doesn't necessarily make you like the game more. It doesn't necessarily make your game experience better. Being more effective is not necessarily, automatically more fun. Whereas having a character you like the look of and that you kind of, increases your kind of bond with your character, like how much you care about them, if they kind of if their style is something that you picked yourself and that you really personally like. So I had fitted a stealth mod to the shock outfit because I like the look of the shock outfit, but I really, really did want stealth. And also I had it in my head that I thought I'm not sure how much difference the stealth is really making. It might be one of those it's saying I'm getting plus 40 stealth, but I don't really know what that means. Is that that might just be I can get 4% closer to an enemy before he spots me. So I was a little bit skeptical about whether it was doing anything. But then when I could afford the top level stealth outfit, it has 2 slots in it for modifications. And my 2 stealth mods were in the original outfits that were less good. And so I thought, well, I'll just find some new stealth mods, because I find really good mods these days. If you take out something like a T-Rex, you always get multiple top-level modifications from them. And they could be anything from something that increases the fire damage of your fire arrows, or something that increases, melee attack resistance of an outfit. But the other possible way I could go about this is there is a higher level skill that lets you take modifications out of things. Usually you can't reuse them, but if you have the skill, you can do that. And again, that's something that is not the kind of thing I'd normally go down. I don't go down like the resource conservation path of a skill tree. It's always available, and I always see it there, and I'm always like, I don't care about that. I want to be a stealthily cool hunter person. And so this led to my grinding, because I thought, all right, well, I think the way I'm going to solve this problem is I'm going to kill a bunch of high-level stuff until I get some good stealth mods, and then I'm going to put the good stealth mods in my new cool suit that has 2 slots for these things and is already good at stealth. And that will solve the problem. But if I don't find stealth mods, I don't really like to grind for something that's just a chance of finding the thing. My fallback is killing T-Rexes will get me a lot of experience, and I will eventually level up and get enough skill points to get this reusing mods thing. I didn't think that was going to happen, because this was 8 points away. I had 2 points, I think, so it was 6 points away. You only get 1 point per level, so I have to level up 6 times to get enough points to get this thing. And that made me resistant to doing it, because it was investing so many points in this tree that I wouldn't normally care about just for this one thing, just getting these stealth mods into my stealth suit. So that was a remote plan B. And what I found was there's usually, if you find what's called a machine site, if you find a strider site, then that'll be like 4 or 5 striders. If you find a bellowback site, it'll be maybe 3 bellowbacks, maybe 2. You find a thunderjaw site, I think that's the right name for the T-Rexes. Typically it'd only been 1, but there's one thunderjaw site where there's 2 of them. And I can hack thunderjaws. They're the T-Rex things. I can hack T-Rexes. And so if I can get close enough to one of those T-Rexes and hack it, now I've got a T-Rex that's going to fight the other T-Rex. And like I say, normally I wouldn't go into grinding, but if by grinding you mean stealthing up to a T-Rex to hack it and then causing it to fight another T-Rex, and then while they fight, choosing which bits of the T-Rexes I want to shoot off with my tear blast arrows to like rip guns off their backs and pick them up and use them to join in the fight, that's the kind of grinding I can do. Like, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that multiple times, and I did it I think I might have done it like 6 times, maybe 8. And it was great fun. It was at first really difficult to get close enough to them. I got a strategy in the end, which is like, I don't know, if something's not got good detection, you can just sneak up to it. If it does have good detection, what you want to do is hide in some tall grass and then whistle to it, and it will come over to you. And it's balanced such that the range at which they detect you is a little bit less than the range at which you can hack them. So if you're in tall grass, you can just wait for them to get to you, and then as soon as the hack prompt comes up, you press it. If you're doing that to a T-Rex, who is the size of a fucking skyscraper, it still works. You can still sit in the tall grass and whistle. Technically, they have a radar that can detect you in tall grass, but they won't use it unless they're actually hunting for prey, like unless they actually think there's a hostile thing around. When you just whistle, they're just suspicious, so they stomp over to you. But you're waiting in the grass for them to get in hacking range. And the earth is shaking as they're walking towards you. And as they get closer to you, the range, I don't know, range is a very different thing when you're talking about a T-Rex, because, if we're talking about getting within 2 meters of it, I mean, getting within 2 meters of its, jaw, as the crow flies, it's going to be above me long before I can touch any part of it. It's going to be towering over me several steps before I can get near its foot, which is what I actually need to hack, because I can't reach up to any other part of him. And in fact, the foot, its steps are significant. So if it steps, if one step takes it 6 meters away from me, the next one is going to be more or less on me. It's not going to be 1 meter away. And so hacking a T-Rex is you wait in the bush, and it's just stomps closer and closer and closer, and you just feel your death coming, because it's the biggest, scariest thing ever. And then at some point it just it either steps directly on you, or it steps so close to you that you actually take damage. The whole earth shakes, your person screams, and your health bar goes down, and while that's happening, that's when you've got to hack it. And it's seeing you, it's getting ready to destroy you, but as long as that progress bar is on screen, it can't directly attack you. Anything else can happen. The other T-Rex can see you, other creatures can get aggroed, but the creature you're hacking is kind of like paralyzed while you're hacking it. And so you just have to like, also there's like animation glitches where as you're hacking it, it wants to show like the sort of hack wires going through it. When you hack something, these blue wires go through it. And to show those, it takes pieces of armor off the creature. It doesn't actually get weaker, it gets stronger. But, as part of that process, it kind of like armor chunks fall off. And when it's something that's the size of like, I don't know, a large dog, armor pieces falling off it don't really cause any problems. When it's the size of a T-Rex, the armor pieces falling off it just like clanging around, knocking you back from it. It doesn't actually stop you hacking it, but it looks for all the world like it is. Like it's knocked you out of range and now you can't hack it, but you just have to hold on to that button for dear life. So you're being knocked around, you've just lost health, everything is about to see you. But if you just keep that progress bar going, and like, tragically and horrifically, the first time I got this close and I was doing this, I pressed the button and the progress bar didn't come up immediately. So I did the worst possible thing and I let go of the button to then press it again. And what that did was, it actually was about to show that progress bar, and it did show that progress bar just at the time that I let go of the button, and then I'm like, no shit, and then I've got to like press it down again. But now, because I've started hacking it, it's definitely detected me, and once it's for sure detected you, you can't hack it anymore. And so I lost the opportunity to do that, and then it was just fucking 2 T-Rexes fighting me, and that was the end of my life. But once you know, this is one of those other things where like, me getting... my increased power in this game is much more about me knowing how to play the game than it is about my character getting more powerful. And so now I know, if you, like, lesson 1, don't try and hack it until you actually get the prompt. Lesson 2, the moment you see the prompt, press the fucking button. Do not press any other buttons. Continue to hold that button. Do not do anything else until that creature is 100% hacked. Like, it almost never interrupts you. It's like feasible. If you're already under attack from something else, then that attack can still land while you're hacking, and if that knocks you far enough away from the creature, then it can interrupt it. But 99% of the time, nothing will interrupt it, so you just have to believe in it and just hold that thing down, and then you've hacked a fucking T-Rex. And once you've hacked a fucking T-Rex, you can just watch 2 T-Rexes fight, and then there's an extra level of game to it, because you're going to get the loot from both T-Rexes. Well, okay, no, there's 2 extra levels of game to this. One is, your T-Rex is going to kill the other T-Rex. It almost always wins, because when you hack something, I don't know, it gets more health or it gets more damage. I've never really figured out what it is, but if you hack a creature of type A, it will easily defeat another creature of type A. It can usually defeat like 2 creatures of type A that are unhacked. You do this with a T-Rex, your T-Rex is going to win, so then you've got to decide, like, can you get the killing blow on the non-hacked T-Rex? Because you want it to die for the loot, but if you get the kill, then you get a load of experience. And so you're really hoping to get the last shot in, but also, if you're stealthy, when the 2 are fighting, that other T-Rex will never spot you. You're totally safe. He's not going to do anything. If you shoot him at all, T-Rexes have very, very quick aggro reactions. And if you shoot it and you don't kill it, now he's going to attack you instead of the other T-Rex. And he'll still die eventually, but he may well destroy you in the process. So that's one part. Then the other part is that regardless of whether you get the credit for the kill that happens, you still want to kill the other T-Rex. Like 2 T-Rexes fight, yours will win. Yours will be somewhat damaged by the process, usually like half health. And then you want to kill that one. And killing 1 T-Rex is kind of doable in a big enough arena, but it's much, much easier if you have a disc launcher. And a disc launcher is a T-Rex weapon. They have 2 of them on their back, and if you shoot one with a tear blast arrow, it comes off, and then you can walk over and pick it up. In general, that is an extremely difficult thing to pull off, because first you've got to shoot an arrow at a T-Rex and survive, which is rare. Hitting the disc launcher is not too hard because it's very big. It only takes 1 tear blast arrow to rip it off. But then it falls at the T-Rex's feet. So after, even if you manage to escape its aggro, you've then got to get over to where the T-Rex generally still is and pick up the disc launcher from right underneath it. And so the challenge of like trying to shoot off ideally you shoot off the disc launcher of the one that's being attacked, the enemy one, before it dies, and then also attack it and get the credit for the kill. And then go over and get its disc launcher, and then retreat back to like these high rocks and start attacking your own hacked T-Rex. When you attack a hacked creature, it does aggro on you. It won't put up with it from like it has a certain tolerance, but I think the tolerance is actually relative to the type of creature. Anyway, it seems like if you hack an attack T-Rex, it really doesn't like it. Like, he'll turn on you right away. There was a time when I was trying to join in with the battle between the hack T-Rex and the non-hack T-Rex, thinking, I want credit for the kill or whatever, and I fired like one fairly standard arrow into the fray at the T-Rex that I thought was the enemy one to try and finish it off, and it wasn't the enemy one, it was my one, who was stunned and looking like he was dead, but he wasn't quite dead. He wasn't at all dead, he was just stunned. And the health bar was close enough to him that I thought it was the enemy one, and I shot my own T-Rex, and that went from a battle that was like, oh, this battle's over, but I'd like to also get the extra credit for it, to, now I have 2 T-Rexes fighting me, neither of them are on my side, and I'm totally fucked. I think, to this day, the worst arrow I've ever shot in a game. Like, the most disastrous consequences of not only failing to kill a target, but hitting the wrong target, turning that target against me, which essentially saves the other target and gives me an extra T-Rex to deal with. So you want to steal the disc launcher, then you want to retreat to a safe distance with your hack T-Rex. You've got time to do this because he won't attack you until you attack. But then when you attack him, you really need to be sure of taking him down. And the disc launcher, how much damage can you do with a disc launcher in total as a percentage of a T-Rex's health? I think it's about 50% if you get off all the shots. But if it fights back, which it will, the damage from its attacks you'll usually survive, but if it does anything that knocks you down, then that's going to interrupt your ability to attack it, and then it can get wildly out of control. So that was what I did grinding on. I did that six or 8 times. Not 7, definitely not 7. And it was thoroughly entertaining. I enjoyed every minute of it because it went differently every time. Sometimes I picked a fight with the surviving T-Rex and it was just way too powerful, and I had to drop the disc launcher and sprint away and go and get some more healing herbs and heal up and come back. And other times it was easy. And like one time the enemy T-Rex damn nearly won. Like, I had to intervene and kill the enemy T-Rex. That never happens with lesser creatures. I think it's because these big T-Rexes, they have so many different attacks that they can do, and they're very different in terms of their effectiveness, and probably different, again, in their effectiveness against other T-Rexes. And so there's probably a strong random element to how effective it ends up being, because it just depends on which attack they happen to use. And the stakes are so much higher with weapons of that power that it can just sort of, the dice can go badly, and you can end up with your T-Rex nearly dead, even though I'm pretty sure a hack T-Rex is like twice as powerful as a non-hack T-Rex, but it was different every time, and I did not find a single stealth modification in all of that. None of them had it, but I was killing many, many T-Rexes, and I leveled up many, many times, and by the end of it I realized, I just have enough points to get that modification, like that perk that I can take modifications out of an outfit. And so I went back and I took all the modifications out of my early outfits and put it into my new outfit. Now my new outfit does, I'm going to check because I want to be correct about this. My current stealth outfit has 86 stealth, which is, I think it's a percentage bonus, and I don't know for sure how it works, but the way it feels to me is that, like, if something could detect me at 10 meters with no stealth, then with 86 stealth it can detect you at 1.4 meters. So 86% off the detection radius. Like, you can get really fucking close to stuff in stealth mode without it detecting you. And it's kind of ridiculous. And you can... it makes you kind of like just in charge of the whole world, basically. You decide what battles happen and what battles don't. And if you attack something, it doesn't help you much once something's already aggroed on you. Like, it's hard to lose aggro. But I'm actually playing Horizon now, I should stop. But it is... really accentuates that feeling of being a hunter, I'm just... it doesn't look like this, but I like to imagine I'm basically wearing a ghillie suit. Like, I'm just a moving shrub. Like, if I don't want to be seen, I just don't get seen. And then when I attack, everyone's like, oh shit, that shrub's attacking us. Let's focus on that shrub. So it still doesn't take the challenge of the game away, but it does let you be a sort of like, a perfect predator, just like, hunting whatever you want to hunt and, taking on whatever you want to take on. And the game just has a really good pattern of that. Like, one of the things I really enjoy about it is that every time I see a creature that I'm about to take on, I stop and I look it up in my notebook, because my notebook will tell me what all its weak spots are, what types of damage they're most vulnerable to, what will happen when I destroy this certain component. Will it cause a shockwave? Will it blow up in flame? Will it do nothing? Will it disable it? Which of its attacks will be neutralized by that? And so you stalk something, you research it, then you plan an attack. You can lay down traps, tripwires, and stuff like that. And in particular, you plan a sequence of attacks, because it's not just I want to deal this amount of damage. It's I want to stun it first. That'll give me enough time to... I was fighting a creature earlier that can burrow under the ground, and it spends 90% of its time underground, and it's really frustrating because you can't do anything when it's there, and then it'll pop up below you, and you can't react fast enough. When it popped up, I would hit it with shock arrows until it was shocked. When it was shocked, that disabled it for 5 to 10 seconds, which let me pump enough ropes into it that it was then tied down. Because if I only got a few ropes into it each time it came up, they would all snap, but when it went back down, and I'd make no progress. So I had to shock it for a brief interruption, then rope it for a longer interruption, and then while it was roped, I was able to override it and hack it to my side. And then when it was hacked, I was able to prepare an even more elaborate trap to coax it into, and take it out. So planning that sequence of attacks, knowing all the enemy's weak spots and stuff, is just really satisfying. And the thing that's striking me right now, because I'm doing all these quests, well, I've done all the main quests and a bunch of the side ones now, is a lot of the actual stuff you have to do in those quests is fighting fighting machines, which is the very thing I enjoy. But it's so much less interesting and so much less satisfying when it's because of a quest. The quest really, it's either fighting humans, fighting machines, or the only time you're not doing that is you're using your Batman vision to view tracks in the world that then lead you to the next location, which just essentially means following a pink trail through the world. You're a hunter. They obviously really wanted to get this hunter feeling, and they do in the open world. But in the missions, they want you to feel like a hunter, following tracks. And I don't know, the theory of that, I don't think that walking down a glowing pink trail that just leads in one direction and is completely unambiguous gets any of that feeling across at all. And I also think it's one of the most boring things you can do in a game, is just follow a glowing pink trail to the next hotspot where the next cutscene will happen. Or worse, the investigation stage where you have to use the scanning vision to see pink hotspots in the world, and then for each one you've got to point your cursor at it, wait for a scanning process to finish, then come out of scanning mode and walk up to it and press interact on it to actually have her say the right thing about it, which is just busy work. It's not at all fun or interesting. So that's garbage. But then the stuff that is combat, it's fine. I don't dislike it, but it's so much less satisfying when someone's telling me to do it, when it's an NPC saying, go here and fight this monster for this reason. Even when there's emotional stakes, and when it's the characters are, some of them are quite fun. The actually doing it is so much less interesting when you're just being told to do it and it's part of a story and someone scripted it. And that same stuff when it's out in the open world, and the reason I'm killing this thing is because I've decided I need this component from it, and when I get this component, I will be able to get this cool new bit of equipment for me. I don't know, getting the new equipment isn't inherently interesting. The plus X, plus 10 damage, or using this new ammo type I'm not mega excited about that. That's not the reason I'm enjoying it. The reason I'm enjoying it is because it was a goal I made for myself, and then I went out and I tackled that goal by applying the knowledge I had about the world, or exploring the world to get more knowledge about the world, and then using my knowledge of that world and those systems to hunt prey of my choice and get what I wanted out of it. And that is just awesome. And it's making me think a lot more about, self-directed goals and the value of making the player's goals feel like the player decided to do them. Crafting systems seem to be good for that, and I don't really... I'm not making a game with crafting in it. I don't plan to, but I want to think more about how to get those kinds of... that kind of arrangement in there, that kind of pattern of the player coming up with their own goals, pursuing them with their own knowledge of the game world, and having these really satisfying experiences.
Hello again. It's me, Chris, again. Now, Tom also forgot to say goodbye in any substantial way, so